Macron has almost completely lost his traditional political influence in Central and North Africa. Paris's economic ties with the region are breaking. The leaders of Morocco, Algeria, Congo, Mali are demonstrating a disregard and rejection of France, its troops and trading companies. With whom and how is Macron trying to compensate for the failures of his foreign policy in Africa? Why has he chosen the Caucasus and Central Asian countries as his new focus of interest? How far will Macron's military political patronage of Armenia go? And how will it differ from military partnerships with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan? AZfront gives an explanation. Against the backdrop of France's rapid loss of ground in West, Central, and North Africa, throughout 2023, it increased its activity in the Caucasus and Central Asia. The choice of these regions as a room for geopolitical maneuver is connected with Russia's weakening influence there. The French are betting on local leaders' desire for a balance between the world centers of power. By doing so, Paris not only intrudes into the sphere of strategic interests of Moscow and Beijing and rivals with Ankara, but also enters into competition with Berlin and Washington. 2023 has become a breakthrough year for Paris in these regions. Taking advantage of Pashinyan's reorientation from Russia to the West, France assumed the role of Armenia's military and political patron. In Central Asia, Astana has been chosen as a priority partner. Political consultations between the foreign ministries of France and Turkmenistan took place in January. In April, President's special representative Isabelle Dumont visited Astana, Tashkent, and Bishkek. In May, the Minister Delegate to Foreign Trade, Oliver Becht, paid a visit to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. At the same time, a meeting of the Franco-Uzbek Intergovernmental Commission and political consultations of the French Foreign Ministry with the diplomatic departments of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan were held. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkmenistan, Rashid Meredov, was welcomed in Paris in September. In November, Macron himself visited Astana and Tashkent. It was the first visit of a French president to Uzbekistan. In the same month, President of Kyrgyzstan, Sadir Japarov, was received in Paris, and the first Franco-Kyrgyz Business Forum was held. France is among the 5 largest investors in Kazakhstan, having provided $18.7 billion over the last 15 years. In 2022, trade turnover increased by 30%, and for 8 months of 2023, by 21%. There are 170 French companies operating in the country. The French Development Agency is preparing to open, which implies investment in the country. During Macron's visit, the agreements worth $1.4 billion were signed. French investment projects in Uzbekistan exceed 10 billion euros. Over the last 6 years, trade turnover has grown by 133%, and in 2022, by 122% compared to the previous year. The Uzbek-French Chamber of Commerce opened in November. On November 30th, the French ambassador to Tashkent noted that Macron's historic visit gave an impetus to relations and cooperation between the two countries. One of the 2 main areas of intensified cooperation with the countries of the region is energy. This includes existing and planned supplies to France, joint production of electricity, oil, uranium, and prospects for French participation in the construction of nuclear power plants. The second direction is presented as the sphere of education, but it is rather Paris's buildup of its soft power and systematic creation of an agency of influence in the years ahead. In September-November, a number of documents on this subject were signed with 3 countries at once. In addition, an agreement on the opening of the international organization, Alliance Française, was signed with Kazakhstan. In September 2024, the Franco-Kazakh University will start operating. Besides, the following documents were signed with Uzbekistan: an agreement on the opening of Alliance Française, a declaration on the training of diplomats, an agreement in the field of vocational education, a protocol of intentions in the field of preschool, school, vocational, and higher education. Finally, a memorandum of cooperation in the field of education was concluded with Turkmenistan. In parallel, options for military partnership with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are being worked out. On November 26th, French newspaper La Tribune reported that during the visit of French President Macron to Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan in early November, the sale of French Rafale fighter jets to the 2 countries was discussed. However, A few days later, this information was denied by the deputy head of the Air Defense Forces for Armament of Kazakhstan. France's increased activity in these regions is Macron's attempt to compensate for the failures of his foreign policy in the Middle East and Africa. Trying to maneuver between Israel and the Arabs, Paris is facing growing antagonism in the Middle East, to the point that the French embassy in Beirut was attacked in October. In its traditional zone of influence, West, Central, and North Africa, Paris has already almost completely lost its former political influence. Moreover, France is experiencing a breakdown of traditional economic ties. In the estimation of many French politicians and media, President Macron is suffering an apparent defeat there. According to Le Figaro, France's relations with one of North Africa's key Arab states, Morocco, deteriorated back in January 2023. In March, Macron had a public spat with Félix Tshisekedi, the president of Congo, a country in Central Africa. The latter publicly criticized his French counterpart, advised him to change his approach to bilateral relations, and demanded equality. From April to December, Burkina Faso's authorities suspended broadcasts of the main French news outlets in the country. In May, the Algerian anthem included a verse about France's colonial responsibility towards the country. As a consequence, there was a sharp deterioration in relations between Paris and one of its main traditional partners in North Africa. In July, as a result of a military coup in Niger, a country in West Africa, the French lost one of their main allies in the region. The new authorities accused Paris of seeking military intervention and expelled the French ambassador. On July 20th, Macron's advisor on Africa left his post, and no replacement has yet been found. On August 7th, 94 French parliamentarians sent an appeal to Macron regarding the unprecedented failures of his African policy. They noted, "Today Niger, yesterday Mali, Central African Republic, Burkina Faso rejected France, French troops, French companies." This movement in sub-Saharan Africa is spreading in the form of anti-French demonstrations and actions, even in countries considered close to us, such as Côte d'Ivoire or Senegal. They stressed that Paris is losing ground in North Africa as well. In general, France is deprecated on the continent in favor of Moscow, Beijing, and Washington. On October 1st, the French news magazine Le Point reported, "For the first time in its history, France is on bad terms with two heavyweight countries of Maghreb. Diplomatic relations with Morocco are at their lowest ebb. Algeria has abandoned the use of French language in its universities." On November 8th, two French parliamentarians, Bruno Fuchs and Michel Tabarot, presented a 170-page report on Paris's failure in Africa, noting the simultaneous rise of Russian and Chinese influence there. In this regard, Marine Le Pen, president of the opposition National Rally Group, accused Macron of having an African policy mired in a multitude of mistakes, inconsistencies, and contradictions. On November 14th, Mali Actu reported, "The diplomatic crisis between France and Mali, which has lasted several months, has intensified in recent weeks." On the 15th, the Algerie-focused newspaper noted, "Tensions between France and Algeria have reached a critical point." On the 24th, Senegal's opposition accused Macron of humiliating the Senegalese people and interfering in domestic politics. On December 3rd, the governments of Niger and Burkina Faso accused France of treating them like children and denying the sovereignty of their peoples. The Caucasus and Middle East is closer to Europe and US than it seems at first glance. Subscribe and click on the bell in order to be informed of the main events. See you soon.